As we hit the halfway point of the WRC season, will it be continued Toyota dominance, or will another manufacturer get the first non-Toyota win of 2025? Welcome to the 69th edition of the Acropolis Rally. This is EKO Acropolis Rally of the Gods Greece 2025. I'm going to start off with the entry list. In total for this edition, there are 68 entries, one less than the 69th edition of the Acropolis. We'll start off with the Rally 1s, go through Rally 2, Rally 3 and the Rally 4 classes. Rally 1 will continue to see a bumper 12 entries. 5 Toyotas, 3 of them opening the road. Elfyn Evans, championship leader from Seb Ogier, who will have a deserved break after this event. And then Carlo Rompera, third on the running order. Further down, 6th on the order, you will see Taka Katsuta. And then 8th, Sami Pairi. We have 3 Hyundais as well. Oyt Tanak, the lead one, 4th in the running order. Thierry Neuville in 5th. And then in 7th place, the number 16 of Adrian Fourmeau. Then positions 9 through 12 in the running order are the 4 M Sport Ford Puma Rally 1s. Led by Gregoire Munster and Josh McAlean. Followed by Martin Sesks and Jordan Serdaridis, who is, unsurprisingly, going to be entered in the 4th Rally 1, the one that he owns himself for his own event. Now in terms of Rally 2, not all of them are entered for WRC2, so I will make the distinctions where possible. The top entry, the number 20 car, so the top seeded Rally 2, is Johan Russell. He's followed by Oliver Solberg, and there's 3 manufacturers and 3 different countries in the top 3 entries. Gus Greensmith, recently married, congratulations to, I believe, over Sardinia weekend he got married in central Finland. But it is also 3 different crews with 3 different nationalities, because whilst Russell and Dunand are French, Solberg is Swedish, Edmondson's British, Greensmith's British, Anderson is Swedish. We then have an all-Spanish lineup for our 4th entry, the PH.PH backed Jan Solans behind the wheel of a Toyota GR Yaris Rally 2. And then we have an all-Italian Fabia after that, Roberto Dapper, our most recent winner, with Luca Guglielmetti alongside. After that, we have Fals Aldevar and Alejandro Cachon, meaning that in this top 7, we have 3 Toyotas and 3 Skodas, but at the head of it, we have a Citroen. The leading non-WRC2 entry for this is Nikolai Greisen in the number 29, and then you get Leo Russell, Larry Una, Diego Ruiloba, Kaitan Kaitanovic, who is perhaps unsurprisingly entered for the Acropolis. He likes a lot of these rough rallies. He also likes to do a bit of globe-trotting and going to events such as, for example, Japan. It's helped bolster his title bit in the past. Emil Lindholm, Pablo Sarrazin, Pierre-Louis Loubet, back behind the wheel of an M Sport Ford, Marco Bellaccia, Yuki Yamamoto, Sarah Rumo, Alejandro Malro, Robert Vivej, Martin Prokop, Jorg Linnemar, Bruno Bellaccia, Karo Kaguri, Fabio Schwartz, Giovanni Trantin. Then we have some local drivers, Georgios Amoutsas, and then Epaminondas Karen Nicolas, Abdulaziz El-Karawari, Miguel Gurandos, Bernard Ten Brink, Uyghur Soyu, Eugen Karagui, and Christian Dolifan. There are also some non-championship entries. Interestingly, a Skoda Fabia R5 entered by the Hellenic Police for Jonas Plagos and Christos Kougionis. And then Luca Holbing and Federico Fiorini behind the wheel of a Skoda Fabia RS Rally 2. Looking at the Rally 3s, and almost all of them are entered for WRC3. We'll start off with the local entries because they're the highest seeded. Ethimos Halkias in a Clio, Georgios Delaportas behind the wheel of a Fiesta, Stefanos Theocharopoulos behind the wheel of a Fiesta, George Vasilakis, who we've seen at many different rallies this season. His co-driver Alan Harriman appears to be on the entry list as Irish. I believe Harriman was previously entered as British. Georgios Dodos behind the wheel of a Clio. And then we get into our junior WRC entries. Leading off is Taylor Gill, then Mille Johansson. That's going to be the title battle. Remember, stage wins count for points here as well. But Mille Johansson, interestingly, according to what I'm seeing here from EWRC results, is not entered for WRC3, just for the juniors. Karim Kazaz is entered for WRC3, and then the next couple aren't. Eamon Kelly and Thomas Martin supposedly aren't entered for WRC3 either. Ali Turkan is entered for WRC3 and Junior, as is Max Smart. And unsurprisingly, the same for Diego Dominguez Jr., who is running 13 of the 14 rallies this season, with a WRC3, JWRC, and WRC2 campaign. Claire Schönborn is the final entry for Junior WRC here, also entered for WRC3, whilst there are two non-championship entries for the event. Matteo Fontana, who's been competing in WRC3 so far this season, so it's probably a thing of building more experience with the Rally 3 car on rough rallies, and then Petros Pantelli behind the wheel of a Clio Rally 3. In terms of Rally 4s, they don't have a class to compete in, but they will probably be competing amongst themselves. Saldar Hakan with Pierre Delorme behind the wheel of a Peugeot 208 Rally 4 is the leading entry, number 77. Then, well, they're all 78 through 80 after that as well. Savas Lefkadidis behind the wheel of a 208. Teo Calamaras behind the wheel of a Fiesta. And Dimitris Pirellis behind the wheel of an Opel Corsa. Now, in terms of the itinerary for the event, the total rally distance is 1,422.04 kilometers according to rallymaps.com. Liaison making up 1,076.28 of that, which means the special stage distance is 345.76 kilometers, spread across the Thursday through the Sunday afternoon. The Ligaria shakedown test near the Lamia HQ and Service Park is, unsurprisingly, unchanged from last year. Then after the ceremonial start in Athens, you have the Athens Super Special Test. This, I believe, is new for this year. It has been the ceremonial start for the Acropolis Rally in 1988, 97, 2001 and 2002. And it is around the Zapiu exhibition and garden. So, quite a historic part of Athens, actually. It's a 1.5 lap super special starting along a main road with a little bit of a chicane and then a ceremonial donut area. If you are familiar with the Rally de Catalunya, it reminds me of the Barcelona tests that we had, or the Salou tests that there were in the past as well, especially with those donut sections. Friday stages keep the drivers towards the south on some of the historic tests on the mainland of Greece. Starting off, we have one of the few, I think the only repeated stage of the Friday, which is the Agitiadori test. Now, at 26.76 kilometers, it is a bit of a long one. It's longer than it was last year. It's been lengthened at the start of the stage. Yeah, quite a bit of elevation. You climb up and then you drop back down later on. It is a famous stage for the Acropolis Rally, first making its appearance in 1984. After that, you have the Loutraki test. That is stage 3, so it goes between the two runs of Agitiadori. The Loutraki test this year is going to be 12.9 kilometers long, so it's going to be unchanged from last year's edition. You might also recognize it as the Havati test, which I've used in the backing for this video from EA Sports WRC. That was the 2022 stage. It first appeared as the Havati test in 1990. In addition to that, in the afternoon we have 3 stages which are each run once over the course of the event. The first one is the Tiva test. Now, that has featured in historic editions of the Acropolis Rally. It was also in the 2024 edition as Stage 8. Here it's appearing as Stage 5. It is slightly longer, uses a different section at the start of it, and a little bit of a different section at the end as well. So it comes in at 19.58 kilometers. First appeared as the Tiva test in 1998. Stage 6 is the Styria test at 24.18 kilometers. It last appeared in the Acropolis Rally in 1998. And even then, it was only part of that made the appearance. The last time we saw a lot of this stage was in 1997, when it was at 30 kilometers long. Yeah, The starting section of it is going to be new to all competitors, I believe. It first made its appearance in the historic Acropolis in 2022. But yeah, there's going to be very few drivers that have experience at this stage, because there's very few who will have competed on it back in the late 90s. Stage 7, the last stage on Friday, is the Alatia test. It's a steep climb up at the start and then a gradual decline later on. 11.58 kilometers. About half of it, the final half of the stage, was the first half of the Rangini test last year, which is also known as the Alatia test the year before. So the final half of it is going to be familiar. The first half, I believe, was used in the 2022 edition, so there'll be some familiarity there, but also it was used in 2017, so any ERC competitors will recognise it from then. I believe it made its first appearance on the Acropolis in 1993. Saturday sees the stages move close to the Lamia HQ, which means you have 2 loops of stages, each 3 stages long. The loops will open up with the Pagliani test, 24.58 kilometers, and it starts at a base of around 1100 meters, climbs up to a peak of nearly 1700 meters, and then climbs back down to around 1200 at the end of the stage. Now, we did have the Anno Pagliani test last year. I believe that the finish for that is where the start is this year. But the Pagliani test that we are looking at last featured in the WRC in the same way, actually, back in 2023. Before that, it featured the same in 2021 as it returned to the WRC calendar. It is a familiar fixture. It has regularly appeared and at the same length since 1992. With the modern form coming in 1993. The Caritas test is 19.48 kilometers long. It starts up towards the peak, starting at 1,000 meters and peaks around 1,300. Then there's a steep decline later on. I believe it's after a hairpin section around halfway into the stage. The base of it at the end of the stage is 500 meters above sea level. Part of this stage will have last featured in the Acropolis Rally in 2023 as the Caritas test, where that one was 28.49 kilometers long. It extended out at the end, so it is a shortened version this year. It has also appeared as the Boxer T's test in previous years. And then the third stage in both loops is the Itinerary test, 17.66 kilometers. It is a climb starting at around 500 meters and finishing at a peak, well, after the peak of about 1200, it drops down to about 1000 meters. Itinerary featured as an all-new test last year, having previously had part of it be the shakedown in 2002. But yeah, this year it is the ender of the loops. It featured as stage 13 last year, and it will be stages 10 and 13 this year. Sunday will have 2 loops of 2 stages. The first one is brand new for the Acropolis this year, the Smokovo test. It is 26.16 kilometers in length. It peaks, then troughs, then peaks, then troughs, then climbs back up again. It starts at 650 meters of elevation, climbs up to 800 meters, drops down to 400, then climbs back up to about 850, drops back down again to 400, and then climbs back up to about 600 at the end. It goes around some mountain ranges, with the peaks of the mountain ranges around us at around 900 meters. So this is going to be quite a rough and rugged test, 26 kilometers to open up Sunday. But this is the Rally of the Gods. It's quite fitting that it's going to be going around some mountains, eh? The other test, the power stage as well, it's stages 15 and 17, unsurprisingly, is another historic stage in the Acropolis Rally. It is Tarzan, 23.37 kilometers this year. It is unchanged from last year and, well, the previous editions that we've seen in 2022, 2023, and also 2021. Like I said, this stage is historic for the Acropolis Rally. In its modern form, it got known as New Tarzan in 2003, whilst some parts of it features the De Castro test in 2004 and 5. The first appearance of the name Tarzan was in 1987. That stage was quite a bit longer, but shared the first 20 kilometers or so with the current test. It first appeared in some degree with the Vitoli test back in 1984. Now, I briefly mentioned temperatures. It is going to be sweltering over the course of the weekend. The peak temperature around Lamia is going to be 38 degrees on the Thursday. Friday shows a peak of 37 and a low of 23. While Saturday is got some cloud coverage. A high of 36, a low of 21, and then Sunday a bit more modest. A high of only 32 degrees, a low of 19. Turn the clocks back 12 months and it was a dominant victory for Hyundai. A 1-2-3. Almost identical to their 1-2-3 in 2022. Thierry Neuville picked up his second win of the season last year here. It's his most recent win to date even. He beat Danny Sordo by 1 minute 46.8 and Oyt Tanak by 2:57.3. In 2022, Tanak was second. It was a controversial team orders call in the end that led to a falling out between Oyt Tanak and then team principal Julien Moncey. What's interesting is the lack of Toyotas in last year's podium. You might remember, we saw quite a intense push by Seb Ogier, which included him rolling on the power stage. He ended up dropping down to 16th in the standings, but thanks to Saturday points, it didn't punish him too much with that title bid that he had in the end. But yeah, we only had 3 Rally 1s in the top 10. They did lock out the podium, and it was Hyundai's. Sami Pairi was 4th from Oliver Vez, then it was Rossell, Kajtanovic, Zaldivar, Josh McAleen, and then Roberto Dapro rounding out the top 10. But it was, an intense weekend in the end. There were so many different retirements, so many drivers who had to Super Rally and compete for the Super Sunday points. Elfyn Evans was in 18th, 2 places behind his teammate Ogier. And Katsuta was down in 30th place in the end as well. I believe this was meant to be one of the ones that Rovanperä did not compete in. So it was the 3 Toyotas for that one. But it would be interesting if we saw something like that happen this year. You're not necessarily going to see somebody pushing as much for the power stage points again as we saw here. But don't necessarily rule it out. But in terms of ones to watch, the pressure is going to be on Hyundai, isn't it? We are 6 rounds into the season. Toyota has won every single event so far this year. Now, granted, the last 2, Oyt Tanak was the nearest challenger, and he probably could have won both of them, but for a mechanical issue where he lost power steering in Portugal and a puncture in Sardinia. Both of them rotten luck. Both of them, it was less than 10 seconds at the end of the event between him and Ogier. So I would say Ogier has got to be probably the favourite. I mean, Kalle Rovanperä ended up winning here before. Was it his second win after the Estonia win when he won it in 2021? So Rovanperä has fine form here. He wasn't here last year though, so that might put him a little bit on the back foot, especially given the complexities of him getting up to speed with the Hankook gravel tyre. Evans has been good on these rough and rugged events in the past. I mean, look at Turkey in 2020, which put him in the title contention. So it could full well feasibly be that Toyota ends up getting a podium lockout, where Hyundai's gotten 2 podium lockouts in the past 3 editions, and they end up getting an 8th win in the row in the WRC. But I would put my money on Hyundai, and I would most likely say Oyt Tanak is going to break the Toyota winning streak. Neuville could do it, and he has had the potential this year, but he just hasn't had the same luck. I mean, he's got 2 podiums in the year, right? Sweden and Safari. Got a 4th in Portugal, had Super Rally last time out. I don't think that he is likely to be as dialed in as Tanak is. Tanak has been in great form and just had rotten luck. And that could come to an end here. Either way, those are my thoughts, those are my feelings. I think that might actually be longer than a WRC's own preview magazine. If you have any thoughts or feelings, do let them be known in the comment section down below. As always, folks, thank you so much for watching and joining, and I hope to see you again soon for more. Bye for now.